Death toll in Gaza is still climbing. Since the start of the ceasefire on October 10th, more than 3
moves in another critical point. And if so, how soon could they do it and how long could they do it for?
possible.
ล่านาที
Billions of Americans in need, long lines for food across this nation, hundreds of cars waiting this morning. These images from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we've
Of the North-South Railway have yet to yield tangible results as several sections in these
2025 isn't just another year anymore. It feels like one long, global emergency alert that never ends. In less than 12 months, the world has been hit with one shock after another. So many that international agencies keep hitting the big red warning button. Wars flaring up, economies shaking, weather going completely haywire. Everything's happening so fast, folks can hardly catch their breath. And right in the middle of all this, those old Bible prophecies are starting to look scary accurate. Revelation, Matthew, Luke, they all talked about a time when the earth would be torn apart by wars, natural disasters, plagues, and strange signs in nature. Before, we just called them religious stories, but 2025 has turned them into breaking news that updates every hour. What really gives you chills isn't the prophecies themselves, it's how fast real events are lining up exactly the way the Bible described. Almost like an unseen hand is pushing mankind closer to the edge. By the time we hit December, 7 big signs keep popping up one after another. Israel and Iran are this close to all-out war. Gaza is still a mess even with ceasefires. Iran is threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the world's main oil lifeline. Tehran is running out of water. Inflation is taking off everywhere. The World Meteorological Organization says 2025 is on track to be one of the hottest years ever recorded. And massive flash floods are slamming Southeast Asia, with Vietnam getting hit hard. These things aren't random anymore. They're connecting like pieces of a puzzle, pointing to a level of chaos we've never seen. Today's video is going to pull all these events together so you can see the whole picture clearly and understand that humanity's time is running short. While news channels race to keep up with stories that aren't even cold yet, every one of us is getting the same message, loud and clear. Are we walking straight into the days the Lord warned us about? So please don't brush off any of these signs. They might be exactly what helps wake you up right now. There truly isn't much time left. And now, are you ready to come with me and look at the path the world is on as it heads toward one huge, special event, the last days? 1. Israel-Iran tensions explode into open war. The prophecy about wars is coming true. In 2025, the Middle East didn't just heat up, it went up in flames. The fight between Israel and Iran that had been simmering under the surface for over 40 years finally blew wide open. According to reports from the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, a 12-day war broke out on June 2025 when Israel launched airstrikes and drones straight at Iran's nuclear sites and missile factories. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was the first shot of a whole new era. Iran International says the IRGC claimed Israel suffered a decisive defeat and threatened that any more provocation would bring a response like nothing ever seen before. Meanwhile, Amnesty International put out an urgent warning on June 18th, right after Israel announced the attacks that started on June 13th. They were afraid regular folks would be the next ones caught in this spiral of violence. The whole region felt like it was standing on the edge of a cliff. But the danger didn't stop there. CNN reported that President Trump accepted Putin's offer of help, a move that made a lot of experts shiver when the big powers started shifting around the battle lines. War on the Rock said those 12 days showed Iran's tech weaknesses, but it also pushed the Middle East right up to the red line, where one wrong step could set off a full-scale regional war. Iranian nuclear scientists were targeted, according to the Council on Foreign Relations, pouring more gas on an already roaring fire. Oil prices shot through the roof. Refugees started pouring across borders again. Armed groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis began moving their forces, The shadow of war spread from the Red Sea to the Persian Gulf, like a net slowly tightening around the world. And in the middle of all that chaos, people couldn't help looking at an old familiar warning that suddenly felt scarier than ever. Matthew 24 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom." This isn't some far-off story from 2,000 years ago anymore. It's playing out hour by hour. Israel, God's chosen people, is now right in the center of one of the clearest signs Jesus ever talked about. Those rumors of wars have turned into real explosions. A lot of Bible scholars have long said the Middle East is the world's prophetic clock, and this explosion might be the second hand, starting to move toward the final pages. Zechariah 12 talks about the day when the nations surround Jerusalem, and 2025 is making that picture a whole lot less fuzzy. According to ISW, Iran and some of America's other adversaries are getting ready for joint military exercises in December 2025. Another piece in a domino chain that could bring the whole world order crashing down. If that happens, we'll all be looking at a storm with no end in sight. In the light of faith, like Matthew 24 verse 8 says, all these are only the beginning of birth pains. And if this is just the beginning, we have to ask ourselves, how much time does humanity have left? 2. Gaza is full of uncertainty right now. There's supposed to be a ceasefire, but it still feels like everything could blow up again any minute. The destruction of Jerusalem that the Bible talks about seems closer than ever. The ceasefire that started in October 2025 was supposed to be the light at the end of the tunnel. But Al Jazeera says Israel broke it almost every single day in the first week alone. At least 339 Palestinians were killed, including women and children. Those cold numbers aren't just statistics. They're the heartbeat of a place sinking deeper into a cycle of violence it can't escape. The United Nations quickly put out an urgent statement, saying there were 393 violations by Israel since October 11th, the day the deal was announced. Instead of silence, Gaza keeps hearing small but constant explosions. ACLED says low-level fighting never really stopped, like a thin line of fire that just won't go out. It feels like the ceasefire only exists on paper, while in real life, it's falling apart day by day. In the middle of all this, the warning in Luke 21 verse 20 sounds almost spooky. When you see armies surrounding Jerusalem, know that its desolation is near. Gaza sits right on the edge of Jerusalem, and it's turning into the exact stage that verse describes. The sieges, the violations, the houses collapsing, it all feels like an old prophecy coming true, right on time. Politico says the first phase of the ceasefire is about to run out, while Israel keeps handing back Palestinian bodies. At the same time, the West Bank is burning with 264 settler attacks in October alone, the highest number ever, according to OCHA. The picture is clear. The conflict isn't staying in Gaza anymore. It's spreading across the whole area, like cracks running through glass that's already stretched too tight. China Daily Asia reports that Hamas has been forced to release hostages and bodies as part of the deal, but airstrikes still happen, making everything even more tangled. Progressive.org described 6 Palestinians killed just days after the agreement and called the ceasefire so fragile you can barely breathe. Every new report feels like another shake of the ground. Something bigger is building up. In the middle of all these numbers, Zechariah 12 verses 2 and 3 seem to echo in people's hearts. I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples reeling. All the nations of the earth will gather against it. Gaza is only a few dozen miles from Jerusalem, and the way it keeps burning makes that prophecy feel like it's happening right now, not some old story from long ago. It's a reminder that when the Holy Land has no peace, the whole world gets pulled into the storm sooner or later. Unispal says October 2025 marked exactly 2 years of the Gaza war, yet real peace still feels out of reach. The Middle East Council points out the huge difference in deaths on each side and says things aren't moving toward reconciliation, they're sliding into a new, even more dangerous spiral. From oil prices to migration to regional security, Everything is getting hit by the ripple effects of these days of ceasefire, but no real cease in fighting. Looking at the big picture, what's happening in Gaza isn't just politics. It's a sign. It's a wake-up call. It's proof that the things the Bible described, trouble among the nations, and desolation drawing near, are coming faster than most folks expected. If this is only the beginning, then what's ahead might be the next chapter of the last days, where the Lord warned that these are the beginning of birth pains, and the world, whether we like it or not, is walking right into it one day at a time. 3. Iran threatens to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. The world's oil lifeline is in danger. Global trade could collapse completely. Just when we're still trying to wrap our heads around those first two events, the world gets hit with another bombshell. And this one goes straight for the jugular of the global economy. You and I both know that when gas jumps a few bucks, life already feels upside down. Now imagine the whole planet's oil supply suddenly on the chopping block. What's happening in the Middle East in 2025 is way bigger than just another market swing. According to The Guardian, after the US struck Iran's nuclear sites, Tehran put a plan on the table to mine and block the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway that carries 20% of the world's oil. They haven't done it yet, but just flipping the threat switch has the entire energy market holding its breath. Pull up a map and you'll see. Close that one narrow spot and the whole world feels it. The Atlantic Council says this is Iran's way of hitting back at American pressure, and it could mess up global trade on a massive scale. Iran's parliament even approved the blockade idea back in June, according to CNBC, enough to put investors in full waiting for the bomb to drop mode. The scary part isn't that they'll do it tomorrow, it's that they're fully ready to do it anytime they decide. It's an open fuse, sitting right on the most important oil highway on Earth. The International Crisis Group points out that Iran has made this threat plenty of times before and never followed through. But 2025 is the riskiest year in a decade. The BBC warns the fallout would be huge. Oil prices shooting through the roof, shipping costs going crazy, and inflation kicking off like dominoes falling. ISW says that by October, Iran was still using the blockade threat to push back against U.S. oil sanctions. CBS News noted that oil prices dipped a little because the market thinks Iran is just bluffing. But the real danger is still hanging in the air. And if you scroll through YouTube, you'll see clip after clip of people staring at the Strait of Hormuz ever since the U.S. strike on June 22nd. At this point, if everything feels like it's hanging by a thread, you're not wrong. One little strait could drag the global economy backward for years, trigger recessions, energy crises, and hurt billions of everyday people. It lays bare a hard truth. The system we thought was rock solid is actually fragile as a dusty pane of glass. And that fragility echoes something awfully familiar from Scripture. Revelation 18:11 says, "The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore." It's talking about the fall of Babylon, the symbol of the Bible uses for the world's fake, shiny system of money and trade. When Hormuz, the pipeline that feeds oil to the whole planet, sits one decision away from shutting down, that picture suddenly feels very real. And do you see it now? These events aren't just politics or economics anymore. There are quiet reminders that the last days won't always come with fire and explosions. Sometimes they come as a slow shake of the things we trusted too much. When one country can make the whole world economy tremble with nothing more than a threat, we're watching the cracks start to show in Babylon's foundation. Every shake like this is God's gentle nudge to wake up and remember what actually lasts in a world this breakable. 4. Fresh water is getting harder and harder to find, and Tehran is now facing a very serious water crisis. Not every disaster comes with explosions or military threats. Sometimes the most dangerous warning creeps up quietly right under our feet when the most basic thing a city needs to survive starts disappearing day by day. That's exactly what's happening in Tehran right now, where 9 million people are staring at something nobody ever thought possible. The drinking water is about to run out. CNN reported that Tehran's main reservoirs are down to just 11% of capacity, the lowest level ever recorded, according to the head of the Tehran Provincial Water Company. The CSIS think tank looked at satellite pictures and said, the water is dropping so fast it's beating even the worst crop season forecasts. Forbes even asked straight out, could day zero, the day the city has no water left, be the spark that sets off a new wave of protests? When your reservoirs are down to single digits, you're standing on the edge. The Guardian said the reservoirs around Mashhad are under 3% now. So this isn't just Tehran, it's the whole country. The Washington Institute pointed out that 5 big reservoirs near Tehran are at 10% or less, and 19 others have fallen below 5%. The BBC used satellite images too and confirmed the water has dropped sharply in the last 12 months. Carnegie warned that other countries should treat this as a real-life lesson, because at one point, Tehran itself was down to only 5% of its total storage. Researcher Juan Cole said, fall 2025 has been the hottest and driest season in Iran since 1979, while the Jerusalem Post blamed corruption and bad management more than the weather. With millions of people depending on water that's vanishing before their eyes, the human crisis is getting very real. No water, daily life falling apart, sickness spreading, and the chance that one bad night could light the fuse on major unrest. And when unrest spreads in Iran, a key country in the Middle East, the shockwaves can reach the whole region. When we look at this picture, it's easy to say it's just climate change or poor planning. But the Bible showed us this same scene thousands of years ago. Revelation 16:12 says, the great river Euphrates, its water was dried up, a prophecy about severe drought that lets the armies of the East gather from the East, setting the stage for the final events of history. The Euphrates is right next to Iran, and seeing the water dry up in that part of the world makes those words feel closer than ever. I'm not saying everything that happens is supernatural, but it's hard to ignore the timing. A major city facing day zero, rivers and reservoirs across the Middle East going dry, a crisis that could bring unrest and chaos. It all lines up pretty closely with what Revelation described. It reminds us that the last days may not only come with wars, but with the quiet breakdown of the basic things we need to live: water, food, life itself. This whole situation makes me believe the world has entered a time when nature, politics, and biblical prophecy are lining up in a way that's worth paying attention to. And maybe, instead of just watching from far away, we ought to wake up and notice the signs that are getting clearer every day. Because every big change starts with small cracks that slowly dry up. 5. Inflation and global economic instability. Some changes come real slow and quiet, no big bangs like wars or nuclear threats, but they still sneak into every meal, every bill, every heartbeat of families all over the world. 2025 feels like one of those years. The whole global economy is standing on thin ice, and one little shake could send everything crashing down. The World Bank says commodity prices should drop about 7% between 2025 and 2026 because there's too much oil around, even though geopolitics can still mess things up bad. S&P Global noticed that cheaper oil has given a quick boost to demand in emerging markets, but it's shaky and short-lived. The EIA reported Brent crude slid from $75 a barrel in April down to just $64 in June, a clear sign the energy market is still jumpy as heck. JP Morgan thinks Brent will hang around $66 in 2025 and then fall to $58 in 2026. The IMF said oil already dropped 5.4% from March to August. But it's not all good news. ALM is warning that oil prices could spike out of nowhere and kick off another round of inflation. Morgan Stanley sees global growth slowing because demand is weak. The IEA just cut its oil demand growth forecast by another 300,000 barrels a day, showing the market is seriously out of whack. MAPFRE listed 9 big economic risks for 2025. Everything from inflation that won't cool off fast enough, messy geopolitics, to crazy labor markets. The European Union is only expecting about 1.1% GDP growth in 2025, and that weakness is spreading from Europe to America to Asia and the emerging markets. All these numbers aren't just cold statistics. They're hitting grocery prices, living costs, supply chains, giving folks that uneasy feeling. A lot of people call hard times. No country gets to sit this one out. Inflation and instability have become the new normal heartbeat of the world. And right in the middle of this picture, does it remind you of something warned about thousands of years ago? James 5:1 says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you." That verse isn't just calling out proud rich folks. It's describing a time when even the strongest economic foundations turn to dust. Looking at 2025, the similarity hits me hard. The world is swaying under forces no single nation can fully control. Giant corporations, huge markets, everything's trembling before things way bigger than us. It feels like the Bible is reminding us that gold, silver, or oil won't keep the world steady. Only staying awake and humble in tough times will. This isn't just about oil prices and inflation anymore. It's a wake-up call that the last days might not only come through earthquakes or wars, but through the collapse of economic systems we once thought were unbreakable. And maybe, just maybe, we ought to see these shakes as an invitation. Stay sharp, get ready, and above all, don't put all our trust in things that can vanish overnight. 6. The temperature in 2025 is being called the hottest year in history. Could this be the heat of a purifying fire? 2025 has been described by experts as a year full of upheaval, sudden, unforgiving, with temperatures rising like they're trying to send us a message we can't ignore anymore. According to the World Meteorological Organization, 25 is expected to be the second or third hottest year in the past 176 years. The average temperature from January through August was already about 2.56 degrees Fahrenheit higher than in pre-industrial times, a jump big enough to mess with ecosystems and push people to their limits. The UK's Met Office says there's a good chance 2025 will end up in the top 3 hottest years ever, and Earth.org points out that the last 11 years have all been among the warmest on record. The State of the Climate update talks about an unbroken string of unusually hot months like we've never seen before. Carbon Brief says January 2025 was the hottest January ever, and March through May were the second hottest on record. The WMO figures there's an 80% chance that sometime between 2025 and 2029 will beat the record set in 2024. Both the Barcelona Supercomputing Center and the WMO agree 2025 is on track to be the second hottest year worldwide. Al Jazeera calls 2023 through 2025 the 3 hottest years humans have ever lived through. And Producer.com says that even with 2 months still to go, 2025 is pretty much locked into the top 3. This heat isn't just numbers on a report. It's bringing real trouble. Droughts, wildfires, crop failures, water shortages, and extreme weather hitting one after another. No matter how advanced we think we are, we can't escape nature when it's this upset. A lot of scientists and regular folks are calling it a warning. Nature is trying to tell us we're about to cross a line we can't come back from. The Bible describes something that sounds a lot like what we're seeing now. Do you remember? Romans 8:22 says, "We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time." That groaning isn't just a figure of speech anymore. From warming oceans to melting ice sheets, from the crack-dry Amazon to the burning Middle East, everything seems to be crying out together. Looking at what's happening in 2025, I feel very clearly that this isn't only about climate or industry. It's showing us something deeper. Mankind has stepped over the boundaries the Creator set for this earth, and now nature is bending under the weight of our greed, selfishness, and carelessness. It's a loud wake-up call that the world is getting closer to what the Bible calls the birth pains before the end. And the simple question left for each of us is this: are we still listening to the earth's groaning, Or have we gotten so used to it that we just treat it as normal life? 7. Floods and natural disasters keep slamming Southeast Asia, just like the Bible said the ground would shake. Nobody ever thought that in just one single year, Southeast Asia would turn into the center of one horrible disaster after another. The years 2024 and 2025 have been called by big news outlets the never-ending disaster season. Floods, landslides, and typhoons hit one after another, leaving damage that many countries can't even imagine. Wikipedia says 85 people died in northern Vietnam and 66 lost their lives in central Vietnam after Typhoon Kalmaegi. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Reuters reported almost 800 dead in all, 604 inches Indonesia, and 176 inches Thailand. A long string of heartbreak with no end in sight. Al Jazeera added that tropical storms in the region took at least 1,250 lives in just a few monsoon waves. Meanwhile, CNN said more than 1,100 people died in a single week, numbers that shocked the whole world as they kept ticking up on TV. In November, the CDP described a sea of water covering Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, forcing hundreds of thousands of folks to evacuate. Facebook posts from regular Vietnamese people showed tens of thousands of homes deep underwater, like whole lowland areas had been wiped off the map. Geopolitical Monitor warned that this year's flooding in Vietnam raises big questions about how well we can adapt to climate change, since roads and buildings were swept away in just hours. The Associated Press kept updating the death toll in Vietnam and Thailand. Floodwaters hadn't even gone down yet when landslides came crashing in. In 2025, according to Ever Magachi, Vietnam got hit by 20 typhoons, something almost unheard of in weather history. Disasters coming this fast and hard made a lot of experts admit this isn't ordinary climate change anymore. It's a chain of wild events that no forecast model saw coming. The money lost is guessed to be tens of billions of dollars, and more people are packing up and leaving because of the climate. The whole region feels like it's being shaken, not just the land, but people's hearts too. Folks are starting to ask, why has nature suddenly turned so angry? To many, these things don't look like just environmental problems anymore. They feel like warning bells from the universe itself. And that's exactly what the Bible talked about long ago. Matthew 24:7 says plainly, "There will be famines and earthquakes in various places." Those words aren't dusty old lines anymore. They're jumping off the page and happening right in front of us. These repeated disasters aren't just bad luck. They're the earth groaning, warning us that the final pains of the end times are coming. What's happening in Southeast Asia isn't only climate trouble. It's a loud reminder that the world has entered a time when every nation and every person has to face the truth. Nature is crying out, and according to the Bible, that cry means the moment of great change is closer than it's ever been. We've just gone through 7 major events in 2025 that many believers and prophets keep pointing to and saying, this isn't random anymore. So what happens when we put all these events together and look at the big picture? Come on with me for a minute. Let's walk through how tightly and clearly they line up with what the Bible warned about a long time ago. When you connect all 7 signs of 2025, they're not just random pieces anymore. They form one big picture that covers the whole world. A picture full of chaos, tension, and things repeating exactly what the Bible said would happen thousands of years ago. Almost to the point of giving you chills. No part of the world is sitting this out. No country gets a free pass. Everything is moving the same direction, toward that final period people have been warned about since the days of our earliest fathers. The Israel-Iran tension isn't just talk or prediction anymore. It's right here, happening now. The shadow attacks that used to stay hidden are now out in broad daylight, turning the Middle East into an open battlefield where one wrong step could light the fuse for a full-blown regional war. Israel and Iran have never been this close to the edge. Every airstrike, Every threat feels like the rumble before a major earthquake in world affairs. In the book of Daniel, chapter 12, it talks about a time of trouble such as never has been since there was a nation till that time. That feeling that everything is stretched tight as a bowstring and one little twitch could set the whole place off, that's exactly the echo of that old prophecy. The whole Middle East is standing in front of a door that, once it opens, will never close the same way again. Gaza is the second clear proof of all this mess. People hoped the ceasefire would bring some calm and breathing room, but instead, things keep heating up. Attacks on top of attacks, innocent folks keep getting hurt or killed, and the whole strip feels like a powder keg with a hole already punched in it, just waiting for the last spark. What's happening in Gaza isn't just about one narrow piece of land. It's sending shockwaves through oil supplies, shipping lanes, and migration all over the world. Go back to the Old Testament. Isaiah 17, verse 1, talks about cities in that region ending up in ruins. That picture doesn't feel like some dusty old forecast anymore. It feels like it's playing out bit by bit right in front of us. Like history isn't going backward, but the prophecy is catching up to today. The third sign makes the picture even darker. Iran threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, the lifeline that carries almost 1/5 of the world's oil. One threat like that could throw the whole global economy into a tailspin. A single wrong word at the wrong moment, and oil prices shoot through the roof, inflation goes wild, recession hits, and the ripple effects are anybody's guess. The world has never felt this fragile over one little waterway between two deserts. Revelation 6, verse 6 warns about a time when a quart of wheat costs a day's wages, and don't damage the oil and the wine. Sky-high food and goods, economic upheaval. It's never felt this close to everyday life. One threat to shut that strait, and the whole world shakes like it's about to step into an economic end of the world spiral. Then there's Iran itself. The fourth sign, a terrible water crisis hitting Tehran. Their main reservoir dropped from nearly 86 million cubic meters to 14 million in just 1 year. Numbers that make you stop and stare. A capital city of 10 million people could soon face serious water shortages, leading to unrest, protests, maybe even the collapse of society as they know it. Climate is only the surface. Underneath is a government cracking under pressure from every side. In the prophets, Jeremiah 14 talks about the ground cracked because there is no rain. The farmers are ashamed and cover their heads. Words written centuries ago suddenly feel alive when you look at Tehran today, a big modern city running dry in the middle of the 21st century. The fifth sign, inflation and economic trouble all over the world. This isn't just the usual ups and downs anymore. It's a domino effect from wars, energy crises, broken supply chains, and living costs going through the roof like never before. People in country after country are cutting back on food and basics, and the whole world economy is sliding along in a wave of worry. James 5 verse 1 says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you." The picture of wealth collapsing and financial systems that seemed rock solid turning shaky, that's the long shadow of that warning. The sixth sign is bigger than the rest. Global warming. 2025 is expected to be the second or third hottest year ever recorded. Temperatures climbing fast, natural disasters coming thicker, harder, and stranger than ever. Wildfires, droughts, superstorms, killer heat waves. Nature is groaning like it can't carry the weight of what we've done anymore. Romans 8:22. We know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. Nature doesn't talk, but it's shouting through droughts, storms, and record heat, groans we've pretended not to hear for decades. And the seventh and final sign, historic floods and disasters across Southeast Asia, puts the finishing touch on the picture. Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, all taking heavy losses in lives and property. Storms, rain, landslides, coming so often they're not unusual anymore. They're the new normal. The whole region feels like it's being hosed down to wake up a sleeping world. Matthew 24, verse 7. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. What Southeast Asia is going through is just one piece of the worldwide map of pain the Bible drew more than 2,000 years ago. When you step back and look at all 7 signs together, one thing is clear: they're not scattered, separate, or accidental. They line up in one straight line, one arrow pointing to the future the Bible calls the last days. Just like in Noah's time, when people kept eating, drinking, marrying, living like nothing was going to change, and then the flood came out of nowhere. Jesus said in Matthew 24:37 that the end would come just like the days of Noah. Today, we're in the same spot. The world keeps turning like everything's fine, but these 7 signs are piling up like water rising before the great flood. Nobody knows the day or the hour, but the signs are getting clearer, coming faster, sounding more urgent, and the picture of 2025 shows something nobody can deny. Mankind is moving very quickly toward the door of the final period, not by feelings or guesses, but by the plain facts happening right in front of our eyes. Every event, every disaster, every conflict is like the last puzzle pieces of prophecy clicking perfectly into place. Even though the world feels like it's spinning out of control right now, these 7 signs we're seeing in 2025 aren't just headlines. They're wake-up calls straight out of the spiritual history written in the Bible. From the wars in the Middle East and all the threats to peace, to the one natural disaster after another hitting Southeast Asia, every single event feels like a bold brushstroke, painting the exact picture of the last days the Bible said would come before the end. These things aren't here to scare us half to death. They're here to wake us up and remind us that Bible prophecy isn't some old fairy tale. It's happening right in front of our eyes today. In the middle of all the chaos of 2025, faith isn't some fancy extra anymore. It's the anchor that keeps us from drifting away. When everything around us is shaking, the only thing that doesn't move is God's word. It's solid as a rock. Like Jesus himself said, Luke 21:28, when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. That's not some vague wish. That's a light shining right through the storm, letting us know every hard thing is just one more step, bringing us closer to the day he makes everything right. But faith isn't something we just keep locked away in our hearts. Real faith gets up and does something. A hand reaching out to help, a prayer lifted up for folks who are hurting, a kind word or a little money shared with somebody who's got nothing left. When we help people caught in wars or disasters, when we take care of this earth God gave us, when we tell somebody who doesn't know him yet about Jesus, that's how we get ready for the day he comes back. Those little acts, one by one, turn us into the light in the dark and the salt in a world that's losing its flavor. And because these days are so serious, I'm asking you right now to quiet your heart for a minute and type a short prayer down in the comments. Pray for the folks who are suffering, for families that have lost everything, for people feeling hopeless in the middle of the wreckage. And pray for ourselves too, that God will hold us steady, guide us, and keep our faith strong when all these signs are swirling around us. Every prayer you write might just be the little spark that touches another heart, because sometimes a quiet prayer lifted to heaven is louder than all the noise down here. If this matters to you, please hit that like button to show your support. Share this so the warning and the hope can spread further, and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos about these end-time signs. Every like, share, and subscription helps this message reach more people. People who need to wake up, need some strength, and need to hear about the forever hope we have in Jesus Christ. Stand strong. Look up. These last days aren't for being afraid. They're for getting ready, staying alert, and trusting Him.
You may have seen that dramatic video of hundreds of birds literally falling from the sky into a neighborhood.
Yes, I'm filming! Wow! Wow!
Do you feel like the air's gotten heavier lately? Like your sleep's more restless? and things that couldn't possibly happen keep happening anyway. If you've ever felt a chill looking at strange shapes in the sky, hearing weird noises coming from deep in the ground, or seeing stuff that feels like it jumps straight out of the Bible, you're not alone. The whole world feels it, this quiet alarm, like the curtain between what's real and what's coming is starting to pull back, and whatever's on the other side is getting real close. From 2024 into 2025, these strange things didn't just pick up, they exploded. In just 2 short years, we've seen more signs than used to take centuries to pile up. The sky's full of shapes nobody can explain. Earthquakes and volcanoes are going off all at once. Strange creatures are coming out of the ice. Bugs are moving in ways and numbers we've never seen. Storms change direction like they know what they're doing. And countries keep putting out official reports about UFOs, or UAPs, now more than ever before. Believe it or not, like it or not, the world is changing faster than we can keep up. The big question is this just a rough patch in nature? Or is it the signs of the end times that old prophecies talked about? From Matthew to Revelation, the Bible describes things that look an awful lot like what we're seeing right now. The earth shaking, stars changing color, wars breaking out, sickness spreading everywhere, and wonders appearing all over the planet. Those old words suddenly feel brand new, like they were written for this exact moment. What makes it scarier is that everything's happening at the same time. That's why this piece has one simple goal: to lay out the 7 biggest groups of signs showing up all over the world at once, so we can look straight at the truth that these aren't normal times anymore. This isn't fear-mongering or gloom and doom. It's real events, real photos, verified videos, and official reports from governments around the world. Put the pieces together and you get a picture that's hard to look away from. Because we can't keep closing our eyes to the warnings piling up all around us. And once you go through these 7 signs, you might realize the time we've got left is running out quicker than any of us thought. So let's not wait any longer. We're about to look at the 7 major signs that show the Lord's warnings were right. Everything is unfolding exactly like the prophecies said. You ready to see them? 1. Strange signs in the sky. These weird things happening in the sky around the world in 2025 aren't just some shaky videos going around on the internet anymore. They're now being seriously looked into by scientists, weather agencies, and even the military. And if you've been paying attention long enough, you get a real chill down your spine. What we're seeing looks an awful lot like the warnings written down thousands of years ago. Can you believe it? Back in Texas, March of 2025, lightning wasn't coming down in the usual straight lines or tree branch shapes anymore. Security cameras, people's phones, and weather radar all caught lightning bolts, forming ancient-looking symbols, curvy lines that looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs. Some nights the whole sky lit up with a giant eye, perfectly round and sharp, like it was staring right down at us. One long-haul trucker in Oklahoma even filmed a bolt that exploded into a perfect cross, blazing bright in the middle of the night. You see, these shapes can't just be random. They look drawn. And the big question is, drawn by who? Down in Brazil, the same kind of thing kept happening so often that the country's weather service had to open a special investigation. Scientists tried to explain it away with unusual electromagnetic activity, but nobody sounded real sure, calling it natural. Folks who know their Bible right away thought of Joel 2:30, where it says clear as day, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth." Doesn't that give you a little shiver? Then, just to make sure we got the message that normal days are over, in May of 2025, a bunch of southern states saw the sun go dark in the middle of the day. Not an eclipse, not clouds, just a cold, gray, dull light that dropped over everything like a curtain. Astronomers are calling it Sigma Octantis events for now, some weird reflection of light from the south celestial pole. Science can give it a name, but it can't really explain it. Does that remind you of what Jesus said in Matthew 24-29? The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. And it didn't stop there. Just a few weeks later, hundreds of videos from New Mexico Arizona, and Texas showed 3 suns in the sky, a perfect triple halo right overhead at high noon. Sure, sundogs have happened for centuries, but never 3 days in a row, and never this sharp and clear. It was eerie. Right in the middle of all that, the governments of the US, Japan, and Brazil all put out new reports on UFOs, or UAPs now, admitting they've been tracking intelligent unidentified objects flying in their own airspace since early 2025. This isn't gossip or movies anymore. These are official papers. When strange signs in the sky keep coming one after another like this, don't you feel like somebody's trying to wake us up? The Bible already told us in Luke 21:11, there will be great signs from heaven. And now those signs aren't just showing up. They're looking us dead in the eye, waiting to see if we're awake enough to realize what's coming next. 2. Glowing figures. Angels appearing in plain sight. Glowing human-like figures showing up in real life isn't some wild fairy tale anymore. We're living in a time when things people used to call myths, legends, or even religious hallucinations are now caught on 4K cameras, drones, TikTok live streams, and even national security systems. At a lake in Texas late in 2024, hundreds of campers around the shore all filmed the same unbelievable thing at once. A glowing figure standing right on top of the water, not on a boat, not a reflection, not fog playing tricks. What they saw, and what the cameras caught, was a bright white shape giving off a soft blue light, just standing there in the middle of the lake, like gravity didn't apply. Then the light got brighter, and the figure slowly started walking across the water, taking light steps like it was floating on air. What goes through your mind when you watch videos like that? A few seconds later, the figure rose straight up into the sky in a perfect vertical line. No wings, no air disturbance, no sound, nothing science can explain. It reminds a lot of people of Luke 24:51, where Jesus was taken up into heaven right in front of his disciples. Some pastors down in Texas called it the first wake-up call, but the news media just stayed quiet about it. It's not just Texas. On the Mount of Olives in Israel in 2025, thousands of pilgrims recorded something that left the whole world stunned. Against the sunset sky, a glowing figure stood upright in the air, feet not touching the ground, yet it looked like it was walking. The light around it pulsed gently, bright, then softer, almost like a heartbeat. When thousands of people film the exact same thing from every angle with all kinds of phones and cameras, it's pretty hard to call it a deepfake, right? Even more chilling, this happened right on the Mount of Olives, the very spot where, in Acts 1:11, the angels told the disciples that Christ will come back in the same way you have seen him go into heaven. A glowing figure showing up in that exact place gave a lot of Bible scholars goosebumps. Could this be a sign something huge is about to happen? But the most jaw-dropping one has to be Mecca in 2025. While millions of pilgrims were praying, a powerful light appeared above the Kaaba. Dozens of different videos show a glowing human figure slowly flying across the sky, arms outstretched, body long and straight, moving smooth and graceful like it was gliding through the air. No noise, no wind, no engine, no thrust, just light and majesty. Tons of people broke down crying right there. Some fainted, others shouted that they had just seen an angel. A lot of religious scholars pointed to Hebrews 1:14, which says angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. Doesn't that match up a little too perfectly? And the scariest part? These things aren't stopping. They're happening more often, more clearly, and more openly than ever before. It really feels like the curtain between heaven and earth is getting thinner, and the same beings we read about in the Bible are stepping back into our world, right in front of everybody. Who knows where they'll show up next? And are you ready if you see one yourself? 3. Discovering a mysterious frozen creature. The discoveries of strange frozen creatures in Colorado back in 2024, Siberia in 2025, and especially Antarctica in those first few months of the year, man, They shook the whole scientific world. But what really got everybody rattled wasn't just how they looked. It felt like somebody just kicked open a door from way before the Great Flood, letting out secrets we all thought were long gone and forgotten. These bodies, half human, half beast, huge, way taller than any person, had bones that don't match anything ever recorded. Just standing near them scared the daylights out of grown scientists. A bunch of them packed up and left the lab in the middle of the night. You know, the Bible warned about this a long time ago, about when these beings would show up again. Genesis 6-4 says, "There were giants on the earth in those days, those mighty men of old, men of renown." When you put that verse right next to pictures of these bodies that have been locked in ice for thousands of years, still perfectly strong, like they're just taking a nap, folks start shaking. What we called myths might really just be old memories coming back. Colorado was the first place the truth started slipping out. The exploration team thought they'd found some prehistoric animal, but the more they looked, the more that face looked almost human. Big, deep eyes, long and sharp predator teeth. They said standing in front of that frozen body felt like facing an ancient warrior, something that doesn't completely belong in our world. And then the rumors took off. Could these be the Nephilim coming back? Can you believe it? Then Siberia 2025 poured gas on the fire. Deep in ice that's supposed to be over 12,000 years old, they pulled up a body almost 10 feet tall, with crazy long arms and a chest twice as wide as a normal man's. A lot of archaeologists started flipping straight to the book of Revelation. Revelation 9:2-3, smoke rose from the abyss, and out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth. A bunch of people are convinced these things aren't just being found, they're being allowed to show up right on schedule. Antarctica was the real kicker. A whole group of these frozen creatures standing together like they were guarding something or getting ready to fight. No decay, no damage, nothing. Like time just stopped the second they got sealed in the ice. Priests who saw the pictures right away called them the army of the last days and tied it straight to warnings about the Antichrist. 2 Thessalonians 2:8, that wicked one will be revealed with all power, signs, and lying wonders. When 3 places halfway around the world from each other all start uncovering the same half-man, half-beast creatures at the exact same time, you can't dodge the question anymore. Is this the sign that the Antichrist is already putting his army together? These things popping up everywhere at once isn't coincidence, it's a warning. Anybody who looks at it feels the same chill. The ice is melting, and the old age is waking up. 4. The great locust plague that covered the whole world happened just like the Bible warned about. The locust nightmare started small in East Africa back in 2020, but it grew into something nobody saw coming. From Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, huge black clouds of locusts rolled across the sky like a night storm and ate entire fields in just a few hours. Nobody knew then that this was only the beginning of a 5-year disaster that would move from Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, then flood into Pakistan, and finally explode across the American Southwest in 2025, the biggest outbreak ever recorded in human history. The Bible had already described something that now looked like it was happening right in front of us. Exodus 10:14 says, "Locusts came up over the land. Never had there been any like them before, nor would there be again." When people saw the sky go black over Arabia in 2021, they started lining up what they were watching with what the Bible had said thousands of years earlier. It wasn't just a symbol anymore. It matched in a way that gave you chills. When the swarms crossed the Red Sea into Saudi Arabia, folks in Riyadh, Jeddah, and even Mecca said the sun got blocked out so bad it felt like the 9th hour. That moment of darkness in the Bible when God poured out his anger. A lot of people climbed up on their roofs and watched wave after wave of insects cover the sky, moving like one giant living thing. It didn't feel like a natural disaster anymore. It felt like someone saying, "Look, what was written is coming true." Can you feel that too? In Pakistan, from 2022 to 2023, farmers called it a little day of judgment. Whole villages lost every bit of their year's harvest in one single morning. Muslim and Christian leaders in Sindh and Punjab both said this wasn't just climate change, it felt like something holy was behind it. Joel 2:25 says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." That verse made people think, if the promise to give it all back is real, then the warning before it is real too. But nothing shook folks like what hit the Southwest United States in 2025. Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, already dry country, suddenly became ground zero for a locust storm so thick the weather radar picked it up like a hurricane. What stunned the scientists was that these locusts weren't exactly the same species that came from Africa, yet they had strange new traits, almost like they'd been changed on purpose. People joked that they knew where they were going, but underneath the joke was real fear that made a lot of folks think of the warnings about the last days. Revelation 9:3 says, "Out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions." When you put that next to pictures of locusts in the Southwest surviving crazy heat and flying in swarms miles long, people started asking, is this a sign that the Antichrist is close? The path from East Africa all the way to America isn't just a story about bugs anymore. It's a straight line drawn across continents, like a message written in the sky by the Creator himself. A reminder that the hour to wake up is here, and nobody can say they weren't told. 5. Natural disasters move like they have a mind of their own, suddenly destroying everything. These recent storms and weird weather don't act anything like the ones you remember from years back. They don't follow the old rules, they ignore the forecasts, and sometimes it almost feels like they know what people are about to do. Did you notice that Chicago snowstorm back in November 2024? It smashed every record, buried the city faster and thicker than anyone had ever seen. That wasn't just a storm. It felt like a message straight from the sky saying, hey, pay attention. The Bible talked about this kind of thing too, about the earth and sky showing real power when the last days get close. Joel 2:10 says, "The sea roars, the mountains shake. The ground itself seems to disappear in God's anger." When you saw the radar showing a storm going the opposite way from what the experts predicted, and right in the middle of it, a perfect spiral that looked like 666, did that give you chills? It wasn't just science anymore. It looked like something mysterious that regular eyes aren't meant to figure out. Texas went through that awful cold snap in 2021, down to nearly 50 below. We thought that was the worst it could get. Then 2025 came along and brought the same kind of deep freeze, maybe even worse, and it spread to neighboring areas. Can you picture whole cities locked in ice, trees snapping, roads cracking apart, and folks just huddled inside praying the power stays on? When you watch those videos, ask yourself, is this still normal weather, or is something trying to wake us up? Even the weather experts admit they can't fully explain it with the models they've got. Storms going backwards, drawing strange symbols in the sky, extreme cold or heat hitting out of nowhere. It really does seem like nature has a mind of its own. Just when we think we've got everything figured out, the weather reminds us we never had control in the first place. And it's not just here. Strange storms have been hitting Northern Europe, Japan, even South America at the same time. They take weird paths, sometimes stop dead in their tracks, spin around one spot for hours, then vanish like they're in charge of time and space. Matthew 24:7 talks about famines, earthquakes in different places, and great signs from heaven. When you line that up with what the radar actually shows these days, it's enough to make the hair on your neck stand up. Do you feel that connection? The scariest part is when storms show up with shapes that look too perfect, like that 666 spiral, or repeating loops that look almost like a signature. Not everybody notices, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's as if something intelligent is leaving us a note. Time's running short. Wake up. These storms, blizzards, and wild temperature swings aren't just bad weather anymore. They feel like warnings from above. A quiet conversation the world can't afford to ignore. Next time you look at the sky or check the radar, ask yourself, am I really listening to what's being said? And am I ready for whatever comes next? 6. Those silent ground cracks and the mysterious trumpet sounds. In 2025, California started seeing these big cracks open up in the ground, real quiet and kinda scary. No shaking, no big boom, just the earth suddenly splitting apart, sometimes hundreds of yards long, like the ground itself was taking a deep breath. Doesn't that give you chills when you see the satellite pictures? We think we've got this planet all figured out, and then the planet reminds us who's really in charge. It wasn't just the cracks. From 2023 to 2025, more than 70 countries all over the world started hearing these strange, loud noises coming from deep underground. People call them sky trumpets. A bunch of the recordings left experts scratching their heads because no machine we've got can make sounds with that pitch and power. The Bible talks about something just like it in Revelation 8-7. When the first angel sounded his trumpet, hail and fire mixed with blood came down on the earth. When you listen to those recordings, doesn't it feel like the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for what's next? These quiet cracks in California weren't some one-off thing. The cracks showed up at the same time those trumpet sounds were heard everywhere, from Japan to Brazil, from Norway to right here in the States. Like everything was happening in perfect sync, like nature itself was sending us a message loud and clear. Doesn't that strike you as more than just coincidence? The Bible describes these kinds of events in amazing detail. Revelation 6:12 says, "When the sixth seal was opened, the sun turned black like rough cloth. The moon turned red as blood, and the stars fell to the earth." Those silent cracks, the trumpet noises coming up from the ground, and all the other wild things we're seeing, they line up with the pictures the Bible paints of the last days. Back then they had to imagine it from words. Now, we're watching it with our own eyes. Some scientists say it's just extreme geology. But have you noticed, these cracks don't cause big earthquakes. They don't shake houses. They just open up quietly and stretch for miles, right when those trumpet sounds are ringing out all over the planet. Doesn't that make you wonder if nature knows a whole lot more than we do? Picture yourself standing at the edge of one of those cracks, hearing that deep, booming sound rising up from below. Everything else dead still? Would you still have any doubts? Why do the sounds happen at the exact same time in so many countries? Why do the cracks only show up in certain places? A lot of experts believe these things are deliberate warnings, just like Revelation 11:15 says, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ." Once you see how the sounds, the cracks, and the Bible all fit together, it's pretty clear the end times are getting closer every day, and nobody gets to sit this one out. These silent cracks and underground trumpet sounds aren't just disasters. They're reminders from God himself, signs so plain that anybody who's paying attention can't miss them. The earth is talking, and right now, it's time for the rest of us to listen. 7. Widespread plagues and mysterious mass animal deaths. In 2024 and 2025, the world saw something hard to believe. Birds dropping dead from the sky by the thousands, whales beaching themselves and dying in groups, elephants walking in circles for hours and then just collapsing for no clear reason. These strong, majestic animals that stand for life and nature suddenly looked helpless against some invisible force. No warning, no explanation, just sudden, mysterious death that leaves people shaken every time it happens. The Bible has warned about signs like these before the end times for a long, long time. Revelation 6-8 says, "I looked, and there was a pale green horse. Its rider's name was Death, and he had the power to kill with sword, famine, plague, and the wild beasts of the earth." When you put those old words next to pictures of thousands of birds falling dead across America and Europe, or whales washing up dead on beaches in South America, it sure feels like those ancient warnings are coming alive right in front of us. Whole groups of whales swimming straight onto shore and just lying there until they die has left scientists stunned. Dozens at a time, No attacks, no obvious sickness. You ever wonder why such smart animals that live in tight family groups would do something like that? A lot of folks are starting to think this isn't just bad luck. It's nature ringing a silent alarm bell for the human race. Birds falling out of the sky in huge numbers showed up from Texas and Louisiana all the way to Brazil and South Africa. The sky would go dark with them. Then they'd rain down dead, scaring people half to death and killing thousands of smaller animals along with them. Elephants walking in perfect circles for hours before dropping dead was just as haunting. It looked almost like some strange ritual. Then boom, they're gone, one after another, and scientists still can't explain it. Genesis 1:24-25 says, God made every animal and saw that it was good. Seeing them die like this feels wrong on a deep level. It's not just one kind of animal. It's whole ecosystems getting hit at the same time all over the planet, almost like a grim symphony playing together. A lot of experts say it's a loud reminder that the clock is running out. Do you feel that urgency too? Every one of these deaths isn't just an animal passing. It's nature talking to us, loud and clear. These mass animal die-offs and plagues aren't only an ecological disaster. They're one more sign of the last days. Proof that warnings written in the Bible thousands of years ago are starting to happen right now. All 7 strange things we just looked at aren't happening one by one anymore. They're all showing up at the same time, in the same rhythm, like some scary song playing together. Can you feel how urgent this is? Come with me and look at the big picture, where even science and gut feelings have to step back. From 2023 until now, more than 90% of these weird events have shot way up. They keep coming, faster than anything we've ever seen in modern history. Lightning drawing ancient symbols in Texas, silent cracks opening in California, locusts swarming East Africa and the Southwest, even red heifers being born in Israel. All of it lining up across the map, happening in the same week, the same beat, leaving scientists scratching their heads. Can you believe it? When you look at the timeline charts, none of this looks random anymore. It's one strange connected chain that today's models can't explain. Revelation 6:1-8. When the first seal was opened, I saw a white horse, and its rider held a bow. Then the second, third, and fourth seals brought death by sword, famine, and plague across the world. When you put that next to what's going on right now, do you see it? The Bible described this exact lineup of signs so clearly, and now we're watching it with our own eyes. We're seeing things line up in ways that are almost too much. One single week can bring lightning symbols, silent cracks, locust swarms, and a red heifer born. Can you picture that? It's all hitting at pretty much the same moment, on different continents, like nature and something beyond nature are working together to send mankind an urgent message. People at NASA, NOAA, and international weather institutes all admit no model can explain why these things are happening together. Storms moving the wrong way, birds dropping out of the sky by the thousands, whales beaching themselves in groups, silent cracks. Everything is outside normal science. Gives you chills, doesn't it? This isn't just a forecast anymore. It's a live warning we can't ignore. Imagine you're watching the weather radar, earthquake charts, and satellite feeds all at once. You'd see extreme storms, quakes, and those trumpet-like sounds coming from the ground, all moving to the same beat that science can't figure out. Joel 2:30 says, "The sun will turn to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and dreadful day of the Lord." When you line that up with what's really happening, those Bible words don't feel like metaphors anymore. They feel like today's news. Take the first week of May 2025. Lightning symbols in Brazil, a red heifer born in Israel. That same week, locusts hitting East Africa, and a crazy blizzard in Chicago. Do you see the whole planet almost pulsing to the same rhythm? When you look at the charts, the dates and places connect so perfectly, it can't be chance. Anyone looking at it has to stop and think. Scientists say these synchronized events are beyond anything we can predict right now. Radar, satellites, seismographs, they record it all. but they can't tell us why everything is hitting at once in different places, like nature is playing some mysterious song. Do you feel that urgency yet? Every minute that goes by feels like another warning that time is running short. It's not just weather, animals are doing it too. Birds falling dead across the US, whales beaching together in South America, elephants walking in circles till they die in Africa, all within a few weeks of each other. Revelation 6-8 talks about sword, famine, plague, and the beasts of the earth getting power. When you look at the data, the Bible called these things long before modern science even had words for them. This worldwide timing isn't just numbers. It feels like a deliberate wake-up call from above. When you look at the maps, timelines, and real photos, all 7 things we talked about connect into one big picture that says, the last days are here. Do you feel the urgency in every detail? This isn't just about nature anymore. It's a living message telling mankind to wake up right now. These synchronized signs aren't accidents. They're a planned series of warnings, reminding us everything is changing on a supernatural schedule. Lightning symbols, cracks, locusts, storms, birds falling, whales dying, red heifers, all coming together in a rhythm that makes your heart beat faster when you follow it. Look close. Really feel it. Can you tell time is short and we need to hear this message today? Do you realize that what's happening around the world right now isn't just natural stuff? It actually lines up with ancient prophecies? Come with me. Let's open the Bible and look at the signs we're all seeing. Matthew 24:4-14. Watch out that nobody tricks you. A lot of people are going to come claiming they're the Messiah and fool a bunch of folks. You'll hear about wars and rumors of wars, nations fighting each other, famines, earthquakes in different places, and the good news will be preached to the whole world before the end comes. When you put that next to things like lightning writing symbols in the sky, birds dropping dead by the thousands, and weird storms, doesn't it give you chills how it matches? Can you feel how urgent this moment is? Luke 21:25-8. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be terrified because of the roaring seas and huge waves. When these things start happening, look up. Your redemption is drawing near. When you see videos of glowing people walking on water, or angels showing up in plain sight in Texas, Israel, even Mecca, don't those sound exactly like what the Bible described? It's like heaven is shouting at us not to waste another minute. Revelation chapters 6-16. I watched the first seal get opened, and the 4 horsemen rode out. Conquest, war, famine, death. Then the trumpets and the bowls get poured out. Signs in the sky, signs on the earth, nothing stays hidden. Look at everything happening at the same time. Lightning symbols, silent cracks in the ground, locust swarms, red heifers being born. Doesn't each one line up with those seals? It feels like we're watching history repeat itself right in front of us. When Matthew, Luke, and Revelation talk about wars, earthquakes, plagues, and disasters, they're not talking about random events. They're describing one big connected chain of signs, telling us to wake up before it's all over. Do you feel that urgency? Every storm that goes the wrong way, birds falling out of the sky, whales beaching themselves. It's living proof of words written thousands of years ago. The Bible also says these signs in the sky and on the earth aren't random. Revelation 8:7-12 talks about the 7 trumpets bringing fire mixed with hail, rivers turning to blood, the sun, moon, and stars going dark. When we keep seeing 3 suns in the sky, or the sun going black in the middle of the day, doesn't that blow your mind how exact it is? Nature itself is yelling the same message. The scary part, and the hopeful part, is that these signs aren't just warnings. They're a wake-up call, and a chance to get right with God. Luke 21:28. Again, look up, because your redemption is getting close. Don't you feel like we're living in one of those special moments in history? Every single thing, birds dropping, whales dying, lightning symbols, silent cracks, is saying the same thing. Time is running out fast. These prophecies from Matthew, Luke, and Revelation aren't some old fairy tale. They're playing out right now. As you watch and think about it, ask yourself, am I paying attention to what God is telling me? Nature, strange events, even supernatural signs.